HOA demanded my pool be covered, so I installed a glass bottom over her yard. Part 1. The Reflection. War begins. I had just stepped out of my pool, cool water dripping down my back when I heard it. A scream, shrill, furious, cut through the calm like a chainsaw through silk. "You're violating my cat's right to sunlight harmony." I blinked, still squinting from the morning glare, wondering if I was hallucinating. Nope. There she was, Karen, arms crossed like a human barricade, clipboard clenched like a sword, her expression twisted in righteous fury. I chuckled. Mistake number 1, because 2 hours later, I found an official HOA citation stuffed into my mailbox. Real paper, real logo, real absurdity. The violation? My pool's reflection was too intense and causing emotional destabilization to the neighborhood. Apparently, my morning swim had thrown her upstairs guest room, and more importantly, her cat's circadian rhythm, into complete chaos. At first, I laughed. This had to be a prank, right? Wrong. Saturday started peacefully enough. I had woken up early, tossed on my swim trunks, and headed outside to enjoy a moment of bliss. The sun was warm. The water shimmered like a mirror. Birds chirped softly above. And then, like a lawnmower crashing through a stained glass window, Karen's voice sliced through it all. "Excuse me, sir. Do you even care what your pool is doing to the community?" I turned, blinking through water droplets, and saw her standing just beyond my fence line, hair shellacked into a helmet, lips pursed so tight they could pop diamonds, and that dreaded clipboard of doom. "Morning, Karen," I sighed, already feeling a migraine bloom behind my eyes. She didn't even acknowledge the greeting. Instead, she launched into a full-blown monologue. "The light reflecting off your pool is hitting my guest room window at precisely 9:17 a.m., and it is destroying my cat's natural sleep rhythm." I stared at her, dripping, baffled, borderline impressed by the absurdity. "I'm sorry." "What?" Karen snapped her clipboard open like she was flipping through a sacred text. "HOA Regulation 7.4C. Light pollution from any external water feature must not affect adjacent properties. You'll be receiving a citation to install a pool cover immediately." And with that, she turned on her heel and marched away like she was the suburban version of Napoleon. I stood there, still wet, still stunned, wondering how sunlight could legally offend someone. I hoped it was a bluff, a bad joke, a Karenism gone too far. But later that day, I found the citation, official, signed, stamped, complete with a grainy photo of me in my pool. The name on the signature? Karen, acting HOA president. Apparently, she'd called an emergency board meeting that morning. I wasn't invited. So, I called Greg. Chill guy. HOA member, lives 2 doors down. Always wearing socks with sandals. "Yeah, man," he groaned. "She pushed it through. Said your pool was a community hazard because of ocular stress. Something about your water glare causing driver distraction and feline disorientation." "You're joking." "Nope," he sighed. "You're the only one this applies to, by the way. Just you." Of course. This wasn't about safety, or cats, or sunlight. It was about Karen, about control. My pool had become her personal white whale. So, for a few days, I played along. I draped a massive blue tarp over the pool. It looked like a beached whale had died in my backyard. It was hideous, trapped heat, made the water smell like boiled plastic. But even that wasn't enough for her. I caught her peeking over my fence more than once. Then, one morning, I noticed a drone hovering above the water. It zipped around, recorded, and zipped off, straight toward Karen's house. The next day, another violation. Incomplete coverage, it read. Apparently, one corner of the tarp had flipped up in the wind, exposing a sliver of reflection that endangered domestic tranquility. That was it. That was the breaking point. I went for a walk to clear my head, and as I passed Karen's yard, I noticed something interesting. Her backyard sat slightly downhill, directly behind mine, wide open to my pool deck. And that's when the idea struck me like a lightning bolt made of petty brilliance. If Karen wanted my pool covered so badly, I'd cover it. But I'd cover it with something she could never unsee, something that hovered, something made of glass. Part 2, Sky Bridge of Spite. That night, Nakor, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying Karen's voice screeching ocular trauma and circadian catastrophe over and over again in my head. And all I could think was, fine. You want a cover? I'll give you a cover you'll never forget. Not a tarp, not a dome, not some sad vinyl sheet flapping in the breeze like a defeated piñata. No. I was going to build a monument, a glass-bottomed skywalk. I spent the evening sketching like a mad scientist. Measurements, angles, weight loads, all of it scribbled down on the back of an old pizza box. The plan? A crystal-clear platform made of reinforced tempered glass, supported by sleek steel beams, hovering just high enough to comply with code, and extending just far enough to coincidentally float above Karen's backyard. Technically, it'd still be a pool cover, but in practice, it would be a sky window into everything she hated most, me, relaxing, in my glorious pool, visible from her patio, every single day. I needed backup. So I called Louise, my college buddy and a structural engineer with a fondness for ridiculous ideas. "Hey, Lou," I said. "Tell me if this is insane." 10 minutes into my pitch, she cut me off with a snort. "Insane? Number, this is delicious. You're trolling her with architecture." We ran the numbers together. Support beam weight, concrete footing depth, load-bearing ratios, and most importantly, HOA guidelines. I reread them 3 times. They said the cover had to be protective, permanent, and in harmony with community standards. No mention of materials, no ban on glass, no height limit, as long as it didn't block utilities or cast excessive shade. And as for overhanging property lines, as long as it didn't touch the neighbor's soil, it wasn't technically encroachment. It was loophole perfection. I started making calls. By the end of the week, I had a contractor, a permit appointment, and a dream fueled entirely by spite and engineering precision. When Vince, the contractor, showed up, I greeted him at the pool with my HOA citation pinned to a corkboard and a grin wide enough to rival the Grand Canyon. "All right," I said, pointing to the deck, "I want a glass platform that starts here and floats out to there." He squinted toward Karen's fence. "You mean over her yard?" "Not on, just above." Vince stared at me for a moment, then burst out laughing. "You're serious?" he said. I nodded. "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." He scratched his beard. "You got permits?" "Soon." "You got money?" "Enough." He looked around, then let out a low whistle. "Buddy, this is a rich man's spite project. I'm in." That afternoon, I visited City Hall. The clerk at the permit desk, a guy named Derek, flipped through my blueprints, raised an eyebrow, then muttered, "Whoa. You're building a floating glass canopy over your pool?" he asked. "Technically," I said, "I'm building a regulation-compliant pool cover." He looked at the stamped HOA code I'd highlighted and smiled. Can't argue with that. Then he thunked a big red approved stamp onto the last page. You, my friend, he whispered, are fighting HOA tyranny with pure style. Naturally. Karen found out before the ink dried. Either she had a spy at City Hall, or she slept in the bushes behind the building. Because the next morning, she was already outside, pacing like a general, lips tight, sunglasses glinting like she was ready to launch missiles. And when Vince and his crew arrived with the first steel beams, Karen exploded. She stormed over in a khaki tracksuit, waving her HOA badge like it was a federal warrant. "This is a violation of suburban aesthetics," she shrieked. Vince blinked. "Lady, we're just unloading metal. This is visual pollution. I demand to see your permit." I handed her a copy with both hands and the kind of smile usually reserved for engagement announcements. She read it. Her eyes twitched. This can't be legal. It's within every single guideline," I said sweetly. "Section 9, Subclause F. Look it up." Her lips parted like she wanted to scream, but no sound came out. And then she spun around and stormed off, her little Yorkie jogging behind like an unwilling soldier in her clipboard crusade. Construction began the next day. The foundation was poured, the beams went up, and the platform started to take shape, black, sleek, modern, like a spaceship docking over my pool and hovering, just slightly, over Karen's roses. Part 3. The Glass Rebellion Rises. By midweek, the structure was alive. Steel beams stretched from my patio like the arms of some futuristic beast, locked into concrete, sturdy as a bunker, but elegant, almost graceful, as they reached out above Karen's property line. And then came the glass, thick, polished, tempered to withstand hurricanes and HOA tantrums alike. Each panel arrived in its own crate, marked with warnings in 5 languages. Vince's crew moved like surgeons, unboxing each sheet like it was holy relic. I stood back, arms folded, watching as they laid the first panel in place. It clicked down perfectly, smooth, clear, brilliant. And in that moment, my pool stopped being just a pool. It became a stage. From beneath, you could see the sky. From above, you could see everything. Ripples of light dancing across crystal water. Sunlight refracting like a kaleidoscope. A personal ocean suspended mid-air. It was beautiful, which of course meant Karen hated it. I caught her standing in her yard, arms stiff, staring straight up at the platform. Jaw clenched so hard I thought I heard teeth grinding. She tried snapping photos again, but there were no violations, no protrusions, no dangling debris, no height issues, every angle documented, every panel within spec. Still, she wasn't done. The very next day, I got a letter from the HOA, a new one, citing psychological distress caused by elevated structures and the potential erosion of community visual harmony. I nearly choked laughing. I marched straight into the next HOA meeting, dropped my thick file of permits, specs, and neighbor testimonials on the table, and said, "Would anyone like to actually read the guidelines?" Greg, the only sane one on the board, gave me a subtle thumbs up from across the room. Karen stood up in full dramatic fury. "This isn't just about bylaws," she shrieked. "It's about decorum. It's about standards. It's about respect." I raised a brow. "Respect? Like when you flew a drone over my pool 4 times last week?" I pulled up my tablet and hit play. There, in full HD. Karen's little drone buzzed over my deck, paused above my diving board, and nearly collided with my umbrella before zipping away. Dead silence. Even the HOA president shifted in his seat like he wanted to melt into the carpet. Karen stormed out without another word. Back at home, Vince and his crew were lowering the final glass panel into place. It glided down like a lid on a treasure chest, locking everything in with a soft, echoing clink. And just like that, it was done. My pool, once covered with a saggy blue tarp, was now sealed by a shimmering glass canopy. 12 feet off the ground, hovering like a defiant chandelier over Karen's kingdom of symmetrical hedges and matching birdhouses. That evening, I sat on my lounge chair, looked up through the glass, and watched the stars blink through the water above me. But the real view, that was for Karen, because from her porch, the only thing she could see now was me, floating calmly in the glow of victory, and I hadn't broken a single rule. Part 4. When Karen brought the cops and got a light show. Instead, the next morning I brewed my coffee like usual, slipped into my bathrobe, and stepped onto my patio with the kind of grin only perfectly legal revenge can give you. The glass shimmered above me like a second sky, blue still, flawless. I took a deep breath, raised my mug to the rising sun, and that's when I saw them. 2 police cruisers, creeping into the cul-de-sac. I laughed before they even got out. Because, of course, this was Karen's next move. I waved politely as 2 officers made their way up the walkway, one older with the tired eyes of a man who's witnessed too many noise complaints. The other, young, curious, clearly new to suburban madness. "Morning, officers," I said, leaning against my post. "Can I offer you some coffee? Or just the usual HOA nonsense?" The older one smirked. "We got a call about a potential airspace violation and structural hazard," he said, glancing up at the glass platform above. The younger one tilted his head. "Wait, this is the pool cover?" "Yup," I nodded proudly. "Tempered glass, structurally reinforced, permitted, HOA approved. Want to see the paperwork?" They shrugged, and I returned moments later with a file thick enough to stun a bear. Stamped permits, HOA bylaw printouts, engineering certifications, property diagrams. They flipped through it while Karen hovered across the property line, practically vibrating with rage, filming a live stream with one hand and waving her HOA badge with the other. "She says you're spying," the older officer said with a sigh. I chuckled. "Only if I develop X-ray vision. Otherwise, I haven't looked in her direction once. But her drone? Yeah. I've got footage of it dive-bombing my patio 4 times this month." I tapped my tablet and pulled up the clips. The officers watched in silence as the drone zipped, hovered, dipped under the glass platform, then buzzed off like an angry wasp. The younger cop muttered, "Wow." The older one just shook his head and said, "I need a vacation." They handed my folder back. "Looks good to us," the senior officer said. "No violations, no hazards, no issue." Karen, she wasn't ready to back down. "This isn't over," she screamed across the yard. This structure, it's oppressive. It's psychological warfare." Then, slam! She disappeared behind her sliding glass door, hard enough to knock one of her wind chimes clean off its hook. But she wasn't done. Oh no. Because 3 hours later, a landscaping crew rolled up in front of her house. And what did Karen have them do? Build a 20-foot-tall tarp wall around her entire backyard. I kid you not, heavy beige fabric, draped from wooden poles, enclosing her once pristine garden in a suffocating canvas box. It blocked the view, all right, blocked the sun, blocked airflow, blocked any trace of joy. It was hideous. Neighbors whispered. Some walked by and shook their heads. Greg pulled up a lawn chair on my driveway, cracked a cold one, and said, "She's trying to block the sky now. That's next-level paranoia." I nodded. It's like watching someone bury themselves in fabric. Karen tried spinning it as an art installation for privacy rights. She even emailed the HOA, calling it a visual sanctuary from elevated harassment. But the truth? She had created her own prison, and the moment the next thunderstorm rolled in, that wall would come crashing down. Part 5. The Rainbow Storm that made Karen go viral. When the storm came, it didn't knock. It roared in like karma wearing a thundercloud. Rain slammed the cul-de-sac in thick, angry sheets. Wind howled between the houses. And Karen's tarp fortress? It didn't stand a chance. I watched from my patio, coffee in hand, pool lights glowing beneath the glass canopy, as the first pole snapped in half like a dry twig. Then another. The tarp ripped from its moorings, flapped like a wounded sail, and collapsed in soggy folds across her yard, smothering her flower beds and dragging mud across the pristine grass she worshipped like a religion. It was beautiful. But what came next? That's when the universe showed off. The rain stopped. The sun broke through the clouds in a soft golden beam. And just then, the wet surface of the glass platform refracted the sunlight across Karen's wrecked lawn, casting a perfect prism of color. Hundreds of tiny rainbows, rippling like magic across the destruction. It was like nature itself had dropped a mic. Kids wandered over, phones in hand, snapping pictures. One teen yelled, "Yo! It's like rainbow heaven!" Another called it the gayest apocalypse ever. Even Mrs. Chan, who never left her porch, stepped out just to feel it. Karen? She stormed outside in a plastic poncho, hair frizzing, screaming at the children to leave her sacred property, but they just laughed, and laughed louder. By that afternoon, someone had posted a photo of her backyard on the local meme page with the caption, "When you build a privacy wall and summon a pride parade." It got over 3,000 likes in 3 hours. People started driving by just to see the rainbow yard. It trended. It exploded. And Karen was livid. She sent cease and desist emails. She threatened to sue the weather. She posted rants about reflection terrorism. But the damage was done. Not to her property. No. To her authority. Because the neighborhood had seen what she'd become. A woman who tried to block out the sky and accidentally built a tourist attraction instead. That night, I floated quietly in the pool, watching the stars through the clean, clear glass. Below me, Karen's yard glowed in faint rainbow remnants. And for the first time in a long time, the cul-de-sac felt peaceful, but something told me. Karen wasn't finished yet. She never is. Part 6. Karen declares war with a yard sale and a newsletter bomb. For the first time in months, there was peace. No shrieking, no HOA citations duct taped to mailboxes, no Yorkie in a security vest marching along the sidewalk, just birds, breeze, and the quiet hum of sprinklers watering newly liberated lawns. But with Karen, quiet never means surrender. It means planning, plotting. So, when a set of folding tables suddenly appeared in her driveway one Sunday morning, draped in faded tablecloths and stacked with dollar store gnomes and plastic gardening tools, we all knew. It had begun again. The sign was taped to her mailbox in neon pink Sharpie. Moving sale. Final week. Gasps spread like wildfire down the street. Karen was leaving? Neighbors passed by, pretending to browse. Most were just there to confirm the rumor. I stayed on my porch, sipping coffee under my shimmering glass ceiling. No need to get involved. The sight of boxes stacked against her window, the moving van idling like a symbol of defeat, said it all. But Karen? Karen wasn't going to slink away in shame. She launched her final offensive. That night, everyone on the block got a surprise in their mailbox, a 4-page goodbye newsletter, printed on pastel paper, complete with decorative clip art and Comic Sans. The headline? Beware, the Glass City. HOA, Karen's final warning to preserve traditional values. She claimed I had waged psychological warfare via modernist pool design, that I was indoctrinating the youth with architectural rebellion. And best of all, she accused me of illegally harnessing the power of refracted sunlight to distract neighbors from their moral duties. I read it 3 times, then laughed so hard I nearly dropped my tea. But the cherry on top? She ended it with a personal endorsement. Do not vote for him as HOA president. He's a danger to mailbox uniformity and lawn sanctity. That was the moment I realized. Someone had nominated me, and Karen just gave my campaign free publicity. By the next day, homemade flyers popped up around the neighborhood. Transparency matters. Vote for the glass guy. Beneath it, a photo of the platform glowing under a purple dusk sky, captioned, "Let there be light, and let Karen be gone." I didn't even print it, but someone did. The neighborhood had spoken. And Karen? Well, she had 1 week left. But something told me she wasn't going down without one last tantrum. Part 7. The Last Stand of HOA Karen. Rain, rage, and a flamingo uprising. The forecast said light showers. What we got was suburban justice. That night, as thunder rumbled overhead, Karen's final masterpiece, her towering tarp fortress, began to crumble. Rain pounded the canvas like nature itself had picked a side. The wooden poles buckled under the weight. Soggy beige fabric flapped wildly in the wind, tearing free like flags of surrender in a war no one else wanted. By sunrise, her backyard was wrecked. Torn tarp dangling from trees, muddy lawns streaked with fallen stakes, flower beds flattened into mush. And in the middle of it all, my glass platform, gleaming above it all, refracting raindrops into a kaleidoscope of dancing rainbows across her shattered lawn. It was beautiful. It was poetic. It was viral. By noon, half the neighborhood had stopped by to take photos. Teenagers snapped selfies under the glass glow. Kids ran through the rainbow puddles like it was an enchanted garden. Someone uploaded a video to a local meme page, a slow-mo montage of the tarp collapsing, set to opera music, ending with the glass platform sparkling above like a crown. The caption? When HOA drama meets divine intervention. Karen was furious. She stormed into her yard, screaming at the teenagers to leave. "This is a private space!" she shouted, waving a broom like she was herding pigeons. They just laughed. One even bowed and said, "All hail the Glass Emperor!" She stomped back inside, face red, muttering about surveillance and HOA infiltration. But it was over. That rainbow reflection was the final blow. Karen's reign had officially become a punchline. By the end of the week, her tarp was gone. The moving van returned. And her house? Listed, discounted, desperate. Rumor was she begged the agent to screen buyers who respected suburban tradition. The agent reportedly replied, "Lady, I'm just trying to sell the house." The morning she left, there were no goodbyes. Just the quiet roar of a U-Haul pulling away, and a single pink flamingo someone had stuck in her flower bed. It held a little sign that read, "In loving memory of HOA control." I laughed so hard, I nearly fell into the pool. Part 8. The Reflection Spot. From HOA war to neighborhood legend, the day Karen left, everything felt lighter. Like someone had cracked open the cul-de-sac and let all the tension drift away with her moving truck. No more clipboard patrols. No more angry flyers duct-taped to mailboxes. No more accusations of visual pollution or vehicular aggression. just peace. That weekend, something magical happened. Neighbors, ones who barely spoke before, started gathering in their yards, smiling, waving, trading jokes about the tarp that couldn't. Mr. Donnelly even hosted a driveway toast with pink lemonade and plastic flamingo drink stirrers. And then came the real surprise. The couple who bought Karen's house, Sam and Lena, newlyweds from Florida, chill, artistic, and openly obsessed with flamingos. I introduced myself, expecting awkward small talk. Instead, Lena looked up at the glass canopy, eyes wide, and said, "Wait, you built that?" "That's the coolest thing I've ever seen." I blinked. Sam added, "We were going to build a gazebo, but I think we just inherited a floating piece of art." And that's when they showed me what they had planned. Beneath the glass platform, in what was once Karen's perfectly symmetrical yard, they were creating a Zen garden, a bubbling koi pond, stone benches, bamboo wind chimes, and directly under the widest stretch of glass, they placed a long cedar bench. They called it the reflection spot. At night, they lit it with soft ground lights that shone upward, making the glass glow like a suspended galaxy. From below, you could see the shimmering silhouette of my pool, rippling softly above the stars. People started visiting, not out of nosiness, but wonder. One elderly neighbor sat there every evening with her tea, saying it helped her insomnia. A teenager brought her sketchbook and called it her focus portal. Even the mailman sat on the bench one afternoon and muttered, "Best damn delivery route in the city." And me? I floated in my pool, staring down at the peaceful garden below, smiling through the reflection of a war well fought. The HOA didn't crumble. It transformed. With Karen gone, new voices stepped up, ones who cared more about community than control. The rulebook got trimmed down from 74 pages to just 5. No more nonsense about shade symmetry or hydrangea height violations. Instead, we got potlucks, garden swaps, a shared library box, and yes, an annual flamingo fest. It turns out, the glass I installed to cover my pool, it uncovered something bigger. It uncovered laughter, connection, and the truth that standing up for your space, even with polished defiance, can inspire an entire neighborhood to breathe free again. And the next time someone says, "You have to cover your pool?" I'll smile, gesture to the sky bridge, and say, "Epilogue, the view from above." It's funny. When I first installed the glass platform, I thought I was building a cover, something to check a box, poke a little fun, maybe teach a clipboard queen a lesson. But I didn't expect it to become a monument, not just to pettiness, but to persistence, not just to HOA nonsense, but to the beauty of standing your ground with grace and just enough glittering rebellion. Months after Karen's exile, life in our cul-de-sac became something else entirely. Kids skateboarded down the sidewalk without fear of noise citations. Lawn decor got creative, flamingos in tutus, gnomes playing saxophones. Heck, someone even built a little replica of the glass platform out of Lego and placed it in their flower bed. And every evening, as the sun dipped low and bathed everything in gold, you could find neighbors, old and new, sitting beneath the reflection spot, watching the light dance through the glass, listening to the gentle splash of pool water overhead, sharing stories, laughter, and sometimes silence, peaceful, real, ours. And as for me, I still float in that same pool, still sip my morning coffee from the same spot, still wave at the mailman as he walks by. grinning at the glowing ceiling over Karen's old yard. Sometimes when I stare up through that glass, I see more than just the sky. I see every step that led here, every absurd violation, every drone flyby, every stomped foot and shrieked accusation. All of it, transformed into something beautiful, because in the end, that's what you do with chaos. You take the madness, and you build something stronger above it, something transparent, something elevated, something that reminds everyone who sees it. You can't control the light. You can only reflect it. And if you're lucky, you turn it into a legacy, a glass-bottomed reminder that even in suburbia,